Good morning, everybody. We're going to do opening prayer first, page 6. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May the experience of happiness be separate from suffering and safety. I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. O Mother Sentient Beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May the experience of happiness be separate from suffering and safely. I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dalai Dhamma Veda No Parasevege Tharabai Dai Dham Jen Chen Be Parade Jo Paraseva Tham Je Je Zor Sebe Mai Nam Ga Dai Nyam Be Sem Je Dam Je De Wa Dan De Do Ngar Dai Dar Nyor De La Na Me Ba Yang Da Bar Zo Be San Jo Rinpoche To Bar Sa. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and mind. Te che de sama je je par de le nga yi song ge wa la ko ma je par de le nga yi song ge wa la ko te de re ne zong de nye ma sang da sam je par de le nga ye zong ge wa la go. Page 10. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the example of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progress on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, giving birth to bodhicitta, and apply myself to accomplish the stage of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the example of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progress on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, giving birth to bodhicitta, and apply myself to accomplish the stage of the path. San jo nim bon chi je bar san je nam la jab sum je che dai san jo sum ba ye so lan de yin jab sum je je dar ngin je de je san jo do ne je ba da san jo zen be la ba la te dai rem ye ne ba da te yen ro la ben don de san jo zen ne je je te yen de ne la ba la ren ba yen de la ba Mother Sentient Beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never be separate from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all Mother Sentient Beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never be separate from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Mai Nam Ga Dai Nyam Be Sim Jin Dam Je Dewa Dan Deve Jo Dan Den Bar Jo Je Do Ngara Dan Do Ngara Je Jo Dan Rava Jo Je Do Ngara Me Be Dewa Dan Rava Jo Je Nye Ren Cha Dan Nye Dan Rar Ta Nyon La Ne Bar Jo Je. Page 18. 18. Unequaled refuge, ornament of the world. Your fame prevails the 3,000 worlds. You are the victor Vajradhara, without a drop. I bow at the feet of the Father Jigdin Sungu. Continually I think of no one but you. Compassionate one, grant your blessings. Dispel the darkness that surrounds my heart. Please bless me so that I can realize the unliberated nature of mind. Cham Dren Je Do Men Zam Len Je Trai Be Don Som Yon La Ja So Me Jar Wain Dor Jen Cha Pan Je Den Gom Be Sha Lan De Te Ta De Sam Je Chu Le Me Sinh Je Lo Je Do Je Jin Nyen Ge Men Ba Sa Ne Jang Sem Je Dar De Do Bar Sinh Je Lo. The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the four continents, and the sun and the moon. As a Buddha fair, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fairs. To lamas who possess the three kayas, I offer the altar, inner and secret offerings. With my body, wealth, and all that is visible, please grant me the supreme realization and enlightenment. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all these are dedicated. Sa ye bi je so ye me do ra re ra len ye nye de ye ba de san ye yen la me de pur va ye do ge nam da yen de ye va re shu Ko so yon zo la me zo na la chen na sa so de yin ye yin ju da le lon ju na ze yon ye la min jo ge nge ro zar de sur San Ser Wa Dang Jo Jin Yak Wa Dang Ye Se Ye Rain Gor Yin Zor Wa Ye Ge wai jun ze dai ge je za ba tham je zo be san jo ze ngo Om Guru Deva Drakene Rena Mandra Padisa Soha. Page 21. Please turn the way of the Dharma, of the true words and their embodiment, according to the disposition and likewise the mental capacity of sentient beings. Sem je nam je sambada lo ye se da je da wa che chong de mon de ba ye je jeng go lo gor de zu
go bodo je ba tab che chim ba dun bo go na yong de jam je de je lo sam sa lo do ban de sa cha je ge ne zo le do je da 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 jo je ba je chu lo do lo le do ga la do so ba da la de ge je ga da ba jo de gen dun lo yang jong za lo do je le lo ba ba me la chu go ba ba ma do ba je ba do Kaju lama nam lazo ande o me je japaran le to sa je kun yo go je la to jo go to 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 bi la me ya lazo ande so so do ma chen ta chu jin chen ya to be bo jo wa je la zo se je to de jo da da chen na dam ba jo jen da da zo te kro na ba la di Jerem con sa ta jerem ko ngadina ni dam je la gon ba song te la to yo ba le na yang di jerem de kang song de me song go le ta dang bo shene de seng ne lo de ha ko seng de nam to me we san de ha ko de lang tong de xin ji bi xi ba sao de de ne to东北行的3万年，我成人看那些东北这些来的哈可能，今年的3万年的，哦，东北来的星期18东星期18上午抬头在上通的，等于抬了点把头没等于抬个大概当啊，等于活的你要他1000个左右吧，等于说的，他接触个了哦，好吧是吧的，大你人生大你人了的呢，你这个女模化姐，这我不当起码的心呢，你搞才能超人家了，电板马的，我这电板的我成都这下过了的，女模化日上从现在查到了，从个路都了，从个山路当这下过了，呀，他这了的呢，这当地的中人。他对饮品的老咖喱品的都对的呢，饮品的老这个他那没话哈过，那没的有了错，那个我当然有的，没当然没的，那玩意下的，同个的他人工这个没把的哈过了这里有没有没一个没的，对哈过了这里这上通的那有没，大概嘛当个老对了的呢，对了讲的。nam kun chodi je teng nam kun chodi je tamchi je be shi song de chak ne de song go he nam pa tamchi den choda den be tamchi chen be shi song
Rinpoche
ni te ka dang di na je chene kan ta ta na yo re di na yo di tempo da conto di kata sene che con gioco sta te fa sta te di che non vuoi tenere a che momento la con chodin ne ha ko di sta non
So that's on page
어디 넘버
74.
37조 드니지 셀로고래요. 넘버 37조도 님베 37진베 시죠. 다 이제 다 상통다와 대리 시바자 신보자 그래요. 동티하고 그래야지. 대체로 책강 셀로 되는 넘버 그게 조다 임베 인속긴 보고 그리고 책들아 인지 도리 셀로 거들 대피되는 더 오죠. 자전거만 다 책대 나빠 통치 조다 책대에 저체로 공부대 가서 놓쳐야 파지.
So today, Madam and friends, we talk more about the generation stage of the secret mantra, the Vajrayana, within the five-fold path of Mahamudra, and that is the section of the Yidam deity. And so, first of all, how do we come to the generation stage? We come to the generation stage like step by step, and we have just mentioned the previous steps up to the generation stage. So first, we cultivate a state of shamatha, of calm abiding. And so, as we mentioned, here we recognize the mind that is without any thoughts. We can let go of all thoughts. And then within that thought-free state, then we can gain an insight into the nature of the mind, the vipassana. So then the mind is still, and then with this stillness, we also need to cultivate a clarity, a clear awareness that recognizes the nature of the mind. So within this emptiness, we find clarity. And so clarity here means that conscious mind that knows that itself is empty. It is this knowing capacity, which we call the vipassana, or the special insight. And so then we train to gain stability in that clarity, the special insight. And when we gain that clarity, then we will naturally understand that one's own mind, really, the mind itself, has created all of samsara and nirvana. And so what we call samsara is the self, this perception of a self. And from the perception of a self appears the other, that creates dualistic grasping, a dualistic perception of self and other as separate, and from that arise the afflictions, and then we cling to our own afflictions, our own thoughts as valid and true, and we engage in action. So that makes our mind temporarily be like water freezing into ice. And so we perceive a reality where actually there is no such a reality. So although it doesn't really exist the way it appears to us, it appears as truly existing. And so when you understand that, having understood the vipassana, then you will naturally also recognize each and every affliction as it arises, for example, anger and jealousy and so on, and you will know the consequences of all these afflictions. And you also know that ultimately they are the fault of self-grasping. And so the antidote to that is the altruistic mind. If you have an altruistic mind, then there is no self. So then, through this special insight, you realize that the self is only a thought in your own mind. And whatever you think, that becomes true to you. So if you think there is a self, then there is a self. And if you think there is no self, then there is no self. So you see then that actually you have a freedom of choice here. You can choose of whether you want to believe or not believe in a self. And this is what creates the appearance or lack of appearance of it. And so then ultimately we also transcend that. Ultimately then the special insight finally realizes that the self neither exists nor does not exist. It is, the nature of the mind is something that transcends all of those limitations of conceptual designations. So it is simply not an object of intellectual investigation. And so the actual meaning of the Vipassana is explained in the book on page 74. In the second paragraph, it says, when we talk about emptiness imbued with all perfect qualities. So this emptiness imbued with all perfect qualities, this is the actual meaning of the view of Vipassana.
남바 탐체지 초단된 바지 남군 초대에서 니 동대신하더니 사직에 공부를 하잖아 남군 초대에서 그 가와리 다다 소속에 샘사동 좀 탐체도 잡에 샘대 사직에서 찍고 차대요 되게 연기 요요거래 초당대 마대 초지 요리 미바지 이제 뭐지 요대요 다때라 장이 이용해들이 장보도 요래 때를 이바다 온 거래 니 온 거요래 되는 민바지 가려야 되나 다 시랍제 찍고 있나 되는 직디be 시랍데 민바지 사계의 시랍데 초기 시랍은 직디be 시랍은 직디는데 배 시랍 니선 거래 대 이제 시랍지 보래 생내로 대래 배도 동로가 만 허르출게는 배나 샜나 네 가다 근데 나래지 도망가는지 들이지는 데 코리에서나 들이지는 무보리 되는 무보던 치마시네 들이들 차당 똑바 들이 대니 정도 이제 감탐제들을 선홍 남주데 우리를 설리 대차인데 들이지는 단 코바데 되게 쪽쪽들이 하고 요래 야 들은 이제 뒤에 시랍 이제 시랍 때 배주대 동거 요래 이제 사와 탐제 체를 나서와 탐제 우보단 세만을 때네 네만 되다 대르시 두체네 땅거 요래 대상체 다통 오 타톡대 사서전 제가 남지 다 바래 산제 하고 뭐 요래 초당 대바잖아 가디나 내바양 상보 마음바양 상보 다다는 저바치 템만 용거들이 선대식 뭐고 대식 뭐서 생각을 하지 상보대 생각 가디는 상보래 제시메베 상보 리그메베 상보 용띠 탐치 대리 종애들이 상보대 들이 상제 초게지 다 대비지고 시랍 네 줄인데 비시랍 좀 맨만 왔다 그래 대리 따따다 상통 코랑 따들은 가리비도 동잖아 다 카고를 담고 나디파 나 마둑 나 오사나도 메사나미도 나데 마디를 담아도 나디를 담아도 그거래 대하고는 다 나디도 파욕절 가려도 다 설명되나 나디 여기 직장도 설명 같다고 지지 센터라는 것은 이제 쭉 봐야 봐 하고 그때 이건지는 그때 나디 지니되나 꼭 공요리 사람들은 나게 코메 와시는 거한테 나게 뭐지 샘지요면 코랑 그때 나 인지 그 요래 가까이에서 변도 라마이나 라마디 죽 라마리스 죽 죽는데 라마면들이 매만하지 차로 사람 매만하지 차게 요래 마시비 좀 됐다가 되는 직딩이 배치라서
So this, the emptiness imbued with all perfect qualities. So this emptiness imbued with all perfect qualities, when you see this emptiness imbued with perfect qualities, it is like meeting the Buddha, directly seeing the enlightened mind of the Buddha. And so that emptiness imbued with all perfect qualities, where is that? Where can we find that? It is actually your own mind. It is the actual nature of the mind that is clear and empty and free of all concepts and grasping. And that is the nature of the Buddha. And when you see it, it is the same mind as the Buddha. So it is called supreme, like a supreme mind, because it is above everything else. So normally when we call something good, then it also means that there must be something inferior to it. So when there is something good, there must be something that is worse than it. So that is why we can call one thing good. And so, for example, in terms of the wisdom mind, when we call one the excellent or exalted wisdom, then there is also a more inferior sort of wisdom. So there is two types of wisdom. There is the wisdom, the worldly wisdom, and then there is the transcendental wisdom, the wisdom that transcends the world. So this wisdom that transcends the world, that is the supreme wisdom of the Buddha. And then the worldly wisdom, for example, is the wisdom that we use to understand the various sciences in this world. But actually it's still the same mind. It is just a different way of using that mind. But it's still, both of these types of wisdom are not two minds. They are one's own nature of mind that is used in different ways. And so if it is used in a worldly, samsaric context, this wisdom perceives a duality. So it sees that there is an I, this is me, and this is him, the other person. So it perceives this duality, a separation between self and others. And that appears to be a reality to this consciousness. It thinks that this is true, and therefore, due to this grasping at a concrete reality, it has many thoughts of attachment and aversion. And it is from this awareness, this worldly sort of wisdom or intelligence, that all the outer universe and all sentient beings, all of samsara is actually created from this. So this worldly wisdom is used for all our worldly activities, for example, understanding the world and various natural sciences and so on. So it investigates the world, holding all appearances to be concrete and separately existing entities. And then based on that knowledge, it utilizes its intelligence. And then ultimately, however, all of those things that are created in this world are compounds, and therefore they are impermanent. And this is what the Buddha has realized. And so therefore the Buddha wisdom is the supreme wisdom. It is always good. It was always good in the past, it will be good in the future, and also now it is ever unchanging. So that is actually referring to Buddha nature. The nature of the mind is always good, always supreme. It is supreme because it never arises and it never ceases to be. It never is born, it never dies, it never declines. It always remains as it is. And so therefore it possesses perfect qualities. That is this wisdom of the Buddha that possesses perfect qualities. And so it is given different names. It is called the wisdom that transcends the mundane, or it is called the wisdom of the Tathagatas, or the supreme primordial wisdom, and so on. It is given many different names, but it's still the same mind. And so here we refer to it as the Vipassana, the special insight, and it is the same wisdom mind that we use in a different way. In the Vipassana context, we are facing inward and we are looking at our mind. And by seeing the mind, then you understand that if you think that there is a self, then to you there is a self, and if you think there is no self, if you don't grasp at any self, then there is also no self. So if you understand that, then you know that it is only your own perception. And if you just let go of this thought of a self, then what is there? What is left when you let go of this thought? And then you realize there's nothing there. It is just like space. The mind is just like space. And your mind and the space become like one. And so then, although you understand that, for example, another person might not understand that. So then the other person sees you in a dualistic way, sees you separate from him. So the other person sees you as a separate entity and then sees himself, oh, this is me and this is him. And you know that actually this is just their perception. Actually, there is no separation. This is just how that being sees that. So there's a different perception. Although one person might see it that way, another person might realize that actually we are not distinct, there is no separation. For example, often also we see the Lama, the Guru, but we really see the body, and then we grasp at the body. And then we think that if the body is present, physically present, and then we receive the blessings, and when the body is not there, it almost appears like the blessings are gone. So that is the fault of not knowing that. That is the fault of still holding on to this worldly wisdom.
Teni char rang lula ta gore ta shirab na ba yires jiktin de bi shirab jiktin bi shirab ta yire shas jiktin ubo tan chima de ba re samdi tenjin de le ka che dang te res ta din jiktin de rob go lo ma ra yire de cha ya ta jiktin de bi shirab de le tin ta ka re ji na so su chal lula ta na jiktin de bi shirab ta pe tu ta ka re tong go res 소수 리더 가르쳤다 제잖아. 야, 소수 리더 나니 소리면 좀 단조를 듣지니까 톱진데스. 단조를 저자워들레스. 내가 티니 타르타지잖아. 드니 타르타지 안 되게 좋고레스. 매일 마음을 못하는 리더를 끼리 나가리 지다고 잡되나. 리더 자성을 리더 박차게 커네. 드니 양장니 루지네. 진즉 성공과 성공 거의 점수 류닝 거war지 류 우보던 치마를 시반 니 남들이 센디 추르 속다 마사로 뉴모바라조 이때 게득 주말에라티네 대동 주마테 차도 하거나 야 다다 이제 내가 시랍 가래 어디 뛰는 내가 시랍 주 당고 주 나지 되게 보죠 다 매와다 하고 성스 다들 요난 데가도 민난 데가도 다 하고 그러서 다 저거 다들 맞지 좀 탐체도 다 샘슬라고 다 왔지 zon에 다주 줄이 요리스 마다베 줄이 다포 줄이 니리스 마다베 줄이 이제 이제 속인 탐체 속면나 등이 용교래 저는 직딩 봐야지 살는 직딩 봐서 다 달라마게 직딩 봐마 더면 핀도 침보요 말에 송고요래 근데 고도 가리 이제 붙이고 고소를 동네 요리 정상 요리 원봉 차당 동네 이제 붙이지는 되는 루미는 루가 나와셨더니 이제 팀배 마다베 줄이서 조 메바리 우리는 고도 속요 말 이제 속진제 마다베 줄이서
So then we should look at our own body, for example, and when we investigate these two types of wisdom. So we have said there is the wisdom that transcends the mundane, the world, and then there is the worldly, the mundane wisdom. So when you look at your body now, then you perceive your body, your awareness perceives your body, and it holds that to be a truly existing self. You hold on to it, you believe it is a true material thing, you think it is true, and then on the basis of this perception, then you engage in action. You act out with this perception of your body, identifying with your body, you engage in various actions. And these actions then are performed by this mundane wisdom. And so this mundane wisdom is nothing that we actually need to learn, but it just naturally follows a certain course of action based on grasping at the body. And then how is it when this transcendental wisdom looks at the body? So then when you look at your body in this way, so what actually is this body then? And this wisdom understands that the body is not who you really are. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, this ship of leisure and fortune of the precious human body. So the human body is like a ship that you can use to attain the state of liberation, if you use it well. So then you understand that you can use this to attain liberation. But if you do not use it to attain liberation, then you will continue to grasp at this body, perceive it as the I. You will not attain liberation, and due to identifying with this body, one day when you separate from this body, you will still have this imprint of identifying with a body, and therefore you will find another body and another body, and in this way you circle from body to body. And so therefore Chigden Sumgön had said, the one who actually wanders around in this ocean of samsara is actually the body. We go from body to body. It is due to our clinging to our body as our identity. And then we create a body based on whichever of the affliction is predominant. So then our bodies become the manifestation of our afflictions. And then depending on our virtuous and non-virtuous actions, we experience happiness and suffering. And so the wisdom that transcends the mundane then understands that there is no self within that body. So only if you think that there is a self, there is one, and if you do not think there is a self, there is no self. And so therefore, I should not hold on to a self, let go of a self, and stay in a state without grasping at anything at all. And that is to remain in a state of the vipassana, the special insight. And then in terms of body, there is two types of illusory body. There is the pure and the impure illusory body. The impure illusory body is our mundane body of a samsaric being. So the impure illusory body, for example, is the body of a worldly god that actually does not have a material body, but it still has a perception of that. So it has like a mental body and experiences samsaric suffering. So it is a worldly god, which is also why His Holiness the Dalai Lama advises us not to practice those worldly gods, because there is no benefit in that. Because they themselves are samsaric beings who suffer, they themselves experience fear and hunger and thirst and heat and cold and poverty and so on. And so although they might not have a body, they still have a perception of a body. So they have like a mental body. They're formless, but they have a mental body. So that is the impure illusory body.
대회나고 다 답은 줄이지 가려야 돼. 다 답은 줄이야 돼. 다 제름을 쓰는 다 정도요. 오나 배나 제름 거 토마나 사시와나 배나 또바 사지 거들 참아 sem을 샷투고요. 또바 사지 거들 gon 강이들 다다다 사지에다 상지에 있다 나레스. 얘네들이 반상칸나들이 사지 거 중중스 랑게 당고 맥다. 맥점나 되게 사지 거대 제네를 항통 공통화 센트나 또 매랑 정만을 차대요래. 가리 지나대 샤리 보여. 가리를 샷투거래. 샷지는들이 맥그 통도야. 많이 봐. 생거 통야들이 샤야요래. 내가 맥그 통고 삼도 통고 말이. 생랑 그 생구 통화들이 샤리요 거요래. 그런데 자라들들이 그래 뒤집가래 양띠 근데 사제 거들 뭐 받도 받대던 거 어쩌고 대샤랑네 근데 대라들이 사제의 용띠 사제 거들 교바다나 오 대라 사제의 용띠 들이 사제가 똑당 용띠 대대로 똑좀 이제 빠이제 대라서 빠이 똑제던 띠 용띠나 저 발신 쪽 다보사 쪽도 톡지 말에 이 상황을 봐도 상관되지 너무 좁아 팔도서 봐도 다본 쪽이요. 사제 용지께는 대를 지내더니 다고 열리 들이 파티 때 사지 거대 생고 되는 요래 말이라 양 야말이 모든 치만 말아봐 저런 속에도 성적도 그리고 때니 죽은 남카 따위에 놓고 자총다서 살라 말이 봐도 자총다서 뭐 동바랑 기사와도 다고 열리 됐다고 지금 말이 제 강의들은 소속 생각 내록돼야 되다 동바랑 기사와 대응을 잡되는 사지 양당 셈을 삼때는 스카를 잡되는 랑 셈을 잡되 얘는 랑 셈을 잡에 마시나 따랑 인디요 보고도 되는 반한 걸 사지 거 체리 정도는 나과 감았어 아무들이 삼터고 요래 총대는 총총 용졌다면 삼터고 요래 되는 사지 거디 용디 있잖아도 사지 거디 저거 나과다 찹디요 랑 셈나 대화를 봐 섭대식 본 대화와 하고 요래 상동과 갑리 셈님에 와시나 그 사지에다랑 셈님에 와시나 뒤뒤경이 셈때가 사지지나 오소치 셈때 사지를 저대요 와 라이다문한테 꼭 가려고 사지 거라 건데 제는 또 뭐왔던지 사지 그쪽으로 건데요 그래
And then there is the pure illusory body, and this is the deity that arises then from the generation stage, the deity that we visualize. So in the beginning, when we first visualize a deity, we can begin first with visualizing a peaceful form, or we can also think of the Buddha Shakyamuni's form. And we all are familiar with that, and the Buddha's form can appear to our mind, all of our mind. So that is a good way to begin to visualize the form of the Buddha. And so at that time, in the beginning, there still is a dualistic perception of this is the Buddha and this is me visualizing the Buddha. And so at that time, you can visualize the Buddha before you in space, for example, in a small form, a small Buddha form just before you in space. And then you think that you look at this Buddha image and then you close your eyes and have it appear in your mind. And if you then beforehand have habituated to shamatha and vipassana, then the Buddha will just appear to your mind, which at that point is without any thoughts, like a clear mirror. So the Buddha then appears like this reflection within this clear, still mind, as you have previously habituated to shamatha and vipassana. And so then, actually, within this clear mind, whatever the mind can conceive of, that can appear to the mind. Whatever you think of, that appears in the mind. You see whatever you think of, and this seeing is not a seeing with your eyes, but it is a seeing with the mind. So if you think that it is something that you will see with your eyes, like a visual perception, then you will again not see it. But this kind of seeing is a seeing with the mind. It appears within the mind. It is not a visual perception of the eyes. And so then the Buddha appears with all the qualities of the enlightened Buddha. For example, the Buddha represents various qualities like the 10 powers or the 4 types of fearlessness and so on, the 6 paramitas. In the beginning, the Buddha had cultivated the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, and then until he attained perfect and complete enlightenment, he practiced the 6 paramitas. And then when he attained enlightenment, accomplished this illusory pure body. And so that is the form that you bring to mind. And when you think of the Buddha's form, then it appears. And when you do not think of the Buddha's form, it disappears. It is not there. And that is because it also lacks any inherent existence. This lack of inherent existence, this appearance of the Buddha's form is the completion stage. So actually, due to the quality of clarity and emptiness, the generation stage and the completion stage are actually a union. They actually practiced at the same time. Because they represent the quality of Sambhogakaya and Dharmakaya. The Dharmakaya is the space-like nature of the mind, and the Sambhogakaya is like a rainbow in the sky that appears very clearly. The colors appear very clearly and very defined, but then the essence of this appearance is emptiness. So the essence is empty and the nature is clear. That is the nature of the pure illusory body. And that is actually the nature of your own mind. The essence of the mind is empty and the nature is clear. And so when you practice the deity again and again, you visualize the deity again and again, you understand that actually the deity is not separate from your mind. It is actually established within your own mind. And so in the beginning we don't understand that, so there is still a dualistic perception, and at that time, for example, you can visualize a form of the Buddha very large, filling up space, or even just very small, like a mustard seed. You can visualize it in any way, and remember the qualities of the Buddha. And then also gradually you begin to understand that how it appears is actually to your mind. And the Dharmakaya of the Buddha pervades everywhere. And therefore it is naturally, inherently connected to your own Buddha nature. And so then gradually you understand that actually this appearance of the Buddha and my own mind are not separate from each other. That Buddha that appears is actually my own mind, or that form of the deity is actually my own mind. And so this is how we gradually practice the generation stage. So in the beginning, it is good to start out with visualizing the form of the Buddha Shakyamuni.
대외 락동 따와라 공소리나 락고고마까네 네 요메 무보세마 점마로 딱지베 바세로 싸고 샤리라 근데 저걸 못 관지네 내 초고요래 근데 다 뭐봐나 들이 파시양 네 출래지 김매와 태통지 담지고 딴 매바도 요 상고요래 그것이 뭐 요가도 매라고 요래 무슨 매다 뭐 요래 좀 요가 매라고 요래지 매가도 요데 사는 거 거래 되지 상고 요래 대답들이 강자야 태통지 딱지로 있나 철공기 그 샘대라 다 얻었다 그래 뭐그 샘대를 쳐다나 주랑 그 나딘지 다 가도 주랑 요나 주 나딘지 가와도 딱지에다 나딘을 옆다 가도 자기 네가 말이지 만일에야지 나디지 저기 초당 커와도 그래서 저봐 통지 말아지 내가 등에 통지 말아야지 그냥 사양때 전마저비가 딱 제가 열만이지 동담로의 주요 메인성 동담원 관련 저기 생각을 안 하시랬더니 인지 요즘에와 나삼 주메에서 말이 요즘에 말이 이걸로 삼모다나들이 도바쳐도 저랑게 새롭다 생각 나디였다 하나 대답 우보탄 치만 좀 많이 봐 딱지 당내 대신에다 상호가 가르치리 잡기 바이나 드리라고 이치 제거래 드리라데라 용기 가리요리는 오 우보탄 치만 맞잡장 저는 신배 이시 제가 통지 좁은 뜻은 진짜는 좀 무슨 좋아 이래 사실 강리성지 상기감이 사실 꽃은 상기 꽃은 입었을라도 사실 꽃은 정도고 요리 대회나 사주로 공대 사진이 소화래스
And so then once you have habituated and stabilized this view of shamatha and vipassana, especially vipassana, the special insight, then you just rest within clear state without thinking anything at all, without any perception or any kind of idea that the deity exists or not exists, something being really there or not there. There's just no intellectual investigation. There's no concept. You just stay within this clear state. But then for a beginning practitioner, beginning practitioner still has many doubts in their minds, and many people do not fully trust the Dharma. For example, some people say they think that what we are saying here is actually, when we are visualizing the deity, it's like we are pretending that something is there that's actually not there, like we are fabricating this deity. And then those things that are really there, we say that they are not there. So it seems that the deity is just like a way of like deceiving our mind, like something that we are deceiving, we are misleading our own mind by pretending that there is something that's not there. So there's many doubts like that, and when there are doubts like that, then one should first look at one's own mind and first of all see whether or not there is a self. So you believe that there is a self. If you have those kind of doubts. So then you should look at your own mind and really identify this self. So where is it and how is it? Does it have any shape or color? Then when you investigate, you will not find anything there. You cannot determine what it really is, this self, how it really appears, how it exists. So it is nothing that you can identify or see, but still it is the one that creates all of samsara. It is the one that creates all suffering. So although we cannot identify that one, we can't see it, clearly we can experience how it torments us and how it creates suffering. So on the basis of that, we can understand that like there is something that cannot be identified, that's not there, we can't see it, but still it performs a function, it affects us, although we can't see it. And so in this very same way, we can understand the nature of the deity. A deity exists in just that way. It is also not an object of intellectual investigation. It is that the ultimate truth cannot be investigated, cannot be understood by means of the intellect. So from that perspective, from the ultimate perspective, it is the ultimate nature is inexpressible. So the nature of the deity really cannot be expressed by words. It cannot be thought of. There is nothing, no conception that can describe it. But when you see it, you are free of doubts. And so if there are still these doubts about the deity, if you can't understand the deity, then you should first understand the self actually, and look at your mind and try to find that self. And when you look at it, there's no way you can find the self. There is no really existing self that is anywhere to be found. And so then slowly, as you habituate the shamatha, vipassana, and then come to the deity, meditation, you cultivate trust in the deity. And so then, in the same way, although the deity lacks inherent existence, it also possesses qualities. It possesses the qualities of omniscient mind, then loving compassion, and also the power to grant protection. So where do these qualities come from? The deity, from the perspective of enlightenment, arises from the three kayas. So ultimately, the deity comes from the Buddha mind.
Tēnā sāngāra tāmbōnyō wāng gō rēs, wāng tī kāngri, ngō chū rēs, ngō kārī chū kārī, rūp zā kā lā dā, rūp kī kā kāng zā, rūp jā kā lā sā ngō chū chē kā yō rēs. Ngō chū tsar dōr dīnā tīrī, rūp zā kā lā dā, rūp kī kā kāng zā, tē yuā tē, rēwā tē kāngri, sēm dīshik nīmbō tē, dōngbō chik tā kā tā gō rēs. tāmbō lī sāk tōgō kāpsi, lāma tā rāsi sājē sōn, yē mē bā, dā yī nī mē bā, nī sō mē bā yī shē sōn, dzibā tāṃ chē tā tā sēm tē rā, sāk sī rā ngō tē chik bā chā tē yā rē, mē tō nō chik rā, nī tā tā dzibā bā kā tā lōmā lē tā mō wā tā chē mē tō gā mbā tā bā chā tē yā rē, lōp ngō tē mē tō tā bā chā, lōp ngō kē tē nyāl chō nyōng lē tē trē jē sēm tē rā, dē rā rām tō tā kō yā, mē tō kā chē wā tā rē. Then you do that a lot and you met all sound of 동만위에 죽어 남갔다 로그야 총다와 죽어 잡았다서 세배 담에도 감버 사용되다버리 들 라빠데 물을 못지 담들 적힌 송데 물을 못지데 흥한체 수남 체보다 dembe 되니 사촉 생비 도블레티니 담물이도 토비를 로르족니 담정이 가와디 꼬디 싫어 오 물리도 짜치 보여 거 토마티 시네 되니 물을 못지데 체적 르적 상지도 지요와 디 더버 탑들들이 야당 람당 레버스 땡업고 나고요 해지
And so, therefore, in the secret mantra and the Vajrayana, we need to first receive an empowerment, because the empowerment is actually an introduction that introduces us to the nature of the deity and also the nature of the practitioner and what their relationship is, how the deity and how the practitioner are connected. So this is what the empowerment introduces us to. So the first way in which we are connected to begin with is Buddha nature. We are connected on the basis of Buddha nature. And that is like one tree trunk or a flower. So in the beginning, when we develop Vipassana, we understand the indivisibility of the Lama, oneself, and the Buddha. We realize the non-duality of self and others, and that is non-dual wisdom. And this mind that is free of all grasping, that is actually the mind of the deity. So it is like the growing of a flower. For example, a beginning practitioner is like a flower bud. So it's not yet opened, and not an unopened flower bud. And the Vajra Master who introduces is like the fully blossomed flower. The Vajra Master has experience, knows how to train beings through the four enlightened activities, can show them the path. So the Master is like this opened, blossomed flower. And then the deity is like the seeds emerging from that blossomed flower. So the Dharmakaya nature of the deity is empty like space. The Sambhogakaya is like a rainbow in the sky, and the Nirmanakaya is like raindrops falling down. Or the outer example is like the growing of a flower. So this precious human body is like a flower bud. And the precious human body consists of 6 elements, and these make endow one with the quality to attain liberation in this lifetime. So we have obtained this precious body as a result of a great deal of merit accumulated in the past, and also through the power of bodhicitta. So amongst all the 6 realms of samsara, we have obtained this precious human body. And if we really understand it, then we know to make good use of this precious existence. Because then we know that in this life we have the potential to attain enlightenment in a single body, in a single lifetime. And then the method to accomplish that is introduced through showing the basis, the path, and the result.
이게 양랑 샘리 냐들이 배찬이 람송 람양 샘리 샘가리 냐저 가리는 거 다디 파욕의 인핑을 로티 샘된 냠들 도고 그러지 샘된 냠들 인핑을 로티 곰 양장도 곰지 냐들이 배찬이 람송 드바 타고 찾는 제베도 다디디 흉기디 유는 보고 다디디 매바찬에 샘 흉기 장보가 흉기 치고도 지나 다른 제베지 이거를 다디 미소로 생고 라지 대가랑 사지 레버요 샘리스 레버 샘서도 바이에서 말아리 바케야 강해지나 자비 사지 머니 배 랑그 샘지 tin이 되게 사지 은에 랑그 샘대 상계는 사지 좀디데 랑그 샘대 상계에서 와래 사지 좀디데 샘는 같이 샘주 쭉 바로 semta nakhala che me semji tamje semta sanje ke semta segu yede chigba sakthong ka be haya bo ma ora tri di cherum ka me ha ko me sala ni di yong yore dewe ni tereng teng ta bo ta cherum de sanje ka ne yo yore ndata ma pa zong tri semgu te zong ne sanje ko kom te sem char den la to ji par ma chu ba te 제직들이 몇 점을 곰 때는 곰 때sem에서 샬고리 샬고 때지에는 그래 저기 제가 랑sem을 또 되면 sem들이 이독사입니다 돈을 랑sem을 또 되요래 때다다 이제 오늘 이 사지가 봐 녹화하고 치료 통 조도 통 되지 근데 다 오지 이러면 내 공부요래
So, in terms of the basis, the path, and the result, actually the basis, path, and the result all are the mind. In the beginning, in the context of the basis, when we explain the basis, then the mind is explained to be the basis. When it comes to the path, in the context of the path, then the mind becomes the practice. And the practice then on the path is to let go of self-grasping and to develop an altruistic mind. So that also is the mind. So the one who practices that, the one who cultivates altruism also is the mind. So the basis, the ultimate nature is the mind. And then the one who practices, it's the same one, it's also the mind. And then in the end, when all obscurations are removed, the result is also the mind, the end result. So once we have cultivated compassion for a long time, self-grasping diminishes. And when there is only great compassion, and that is the final result, when there is no more self-grasping, the nature of that mind naturally is the Buddha. So the result is also the mind, as Milarepa had explained. Actually, he said, there is no Buddha to be found elsewhere outside of your mind. To see the Buddha, look at the quality of your own mind. And also the Buddha himself had said that your own mind is actually the Buddha. So your own mental continuum and the Buddha's mental continuum are actually one mental continuum. It is just like space. We can understand that through space. Because the nature of mind is like space, there cannot be a distinction between our minds. There is no separation. So therefore, the mind of all sentient beings and of the Buddha is the same. And also that is the mind of the deity. And so when we practice the deity and we do not understand that, so that is if we do not have developed the vipassana insight beforehand, then in the generation stage, when we visualize the deity, we will still perceive the deity in a dualistic way. There will be a dualistic perception. And so at that time, for example, today when we visualize the deity, you can just visualize the Buddha form before you. So here we have an image, a statue of the Buddha. So you can look at that, use that as your support of visualization. Have that appear in your mind. As you look at that, you close your eyes and then have it appear in your mind. And then try not to follow any other thoughts. Try not to let that vision of the Buddha be interrupted by any other thoughts as you have your eyes closed. The generation stage of the deity, the visualization must appear clearly in the mind. And then you recognize that what appears to you is actually in your own mind. And so therefore the deity is actually not separate from your own mind. It is your own mind. But for the time being, we have a dualistic perception. And so at that time, you can visualize also the Buddha outside in space, sometimes very large, filling up space, sometimes very small. So there's different ways in which we can train in the generation stage.
meditation. toward the way. There has a question.
I've got two.
Anyone has questions?
I have two here already. Shall I start with them? In practicing loving kindness, I find it easier to bestow on others than myself. How can I cultivate this without sacrificing myself? Sam ninje gombe kabla, tene tam chitang sam ninje gombe kabla ra tene mi shen that pena roba chi ya gona ra mi shen chikpo samlo tangye tene nga shira samlo tangye yo mare nga gola ra pena nga sam ninje gombe kabla ra sam ninje kenza Sam ninja. Kinsa.
Sam ninja.
Yeah. Di kompe kapla. Dini ngami shembala roba yagi yorwa. Roba yara. Dini di kapla nga ngarang chuna samtanga yo mare. Ngarang ki dewa. Nga ki dewa dirwa. Samtangi me. Nga
masamba.
Nga masamba. Dini mission yina yang tatiang the inje dawachi yore pate soso la yang lu danya yo marwa tansina soso di lu dana deni yang soso de da ta kan la gore na cha da yang jongra si girwa deni yene yang soso pet lu dang girwa deni chishina soso la din no ba yong gire
ta ti lu dang ma ta wa de dan ji le lu dang gore lu dang le deni soso desting jong bo de lu distinction la ro ya yo la go la ta bu yo ma le de da di de la ro lu tang ma cha de da ji ba le de nga ma sam ba ji sem ji pi go sam jang de ge de hin ta ba le pe ge de zhu qi bo le de zhu ce le de zhu ce qi ba le nga la pi go da yi ni ju ge bi ka shi de zhang da de zhou yo ma da de qi bo cha de yo le Damba somebody chores, Litangores. Litawans is a cool pendiores. Dollar Dandi the Pandro, Dandi Charondo, Shoko.
So actually, so this thought of maybe I shouldn't like sacrifice myself completely, and so this kind of thinking is also due to self-grasping. Actually, you should completely sacrifice the self, let it all go. And even if you let it all go, you can never lose your Buddha nature. Even if you wanted to, actually, you can't help but not lose your Buddha nature. But what you should lose, what you should completely sacrifice is that self, and the grasping at the self. So if you really only think about benefiting others, helping others, and you never think about yourself, then that's actually the greatest benefit. That is actually the best. That is like the warmth that melts the ice block. So normally, when we perceive self and others, we perceive the self to be very important. So now when you think that you only think about others and you don't worry much about yourself, so then actually that is the best way to practice, because that is what we should do. We should completely give up that self, give up ourselves. And actually by doing that, you're actually benefiting yourself the most, because the self-grasping is like ice, and until it's melted, we must melt it. So the more we melt of it, the better it is. Then when you say your mind, do you mean inside the head or in the field of cognition? So sem seradira, so sem seradi, kairis benangangi lebanang la, go nang la, leba nangla chi yorves leba totan chi yorva loktabo yana takas tanla so du chi yorva tamta thong yorva tamda hakko yorva dirves so di krank sem se dirva krank sem se di laptu di kare ki sem kare res
sem지와에 들이 짜이 내야 요 말이 주고도 찹대 요래 때마 채대 다도 내 탐질이 찹대 요래 강바디처럼 그냥 강바디로 누바당 것처럼 고로랑 거다 이 찹대 요래 가사카 찹대 요래 샘도 가와도 가와대 이렇게 짜로 탑 같다고 실내는 시크 요래지 제공 그 감이 샘도 가와네 딱지 따야 요 말이 제가 선낭조 그렇죠마다 근데도 뭐 보나는 설아요 말이 낭나요 말 발나요 말이지 너는 선낭카다 버리는 막 잡사요 말이 나도 뭐 탐질이 잡대요 그래지.
So we mentioned that that mind is, when we try to locate the mind, we try to find it, we cannot find it. So we cannot say this is where it is, like in the brain or so in the head. But actually, it's all pervasive. There is nothing which is not pervaded. Your entire body is pervaded by the mind. And actually, not only that, now wherever yourself goes, this is where the mind goes. For example, you own this building, this house. So then if something, there's some damage to the house, then you get angry, right? So that means the mind pervades the house too. Wherever there is the I, whatever you own, you identify with, the mind pervades, the mind goes anywhere. But also we mentioned yesterday during the shamatha practice, and also during the analytical meditation, that we can actually not determine the location of the mind. We cannot say where it is, where it abides. In the Samantha Bhadra prayer, it says, it is neither on the outer level, it is not outer, and it is also not inside. It is beyond affirmation or denial, so beyond existence and non-existence. So it is everywhere. There is actually no outer, and there is no inner, and there's nothing in between. The mind pervades everywhere where space pervades. And so from a perspective of self-grasping, the mind pervades all those objects and everything that we take ownership of. Can you explain Tilopa's statement, this is self-aware wisdom, know by yourself your own supreme self-awareness. Tela Tilopa chiksonge yore di dashen anang di rangri yisheris krang sem di rangri yisheris deni sosu da sosu rang rigpati da rigpe chog res in the sosu hakovara sosu rang rigpati deni rigpa chog yakshi chores di Tilopa chiksonge yore di this dashen anang
락 르르 초리 말이들이 민바리 말 니지 차디요리 락랑 세분대로 갔다 플라톤 거 따지 고나들이 초를 저러고 락랑 말로 소소랑 렉 이시규어 봐 락랑 저더니 초리 내로도 봤어 거요 내로도 그래서
랑르기 예셔티 카레레디 저
산지
산게 예시 랑르기 예시 랑르기 예시
랑르기 예시 산지 예시데 지바 예시 지바 랑르 예시도 족쇼래 랑랑 말은 남시리 파카콜은 다진이 상은 남시지 서로 결정나 봐제 다진이 하고요래 철라도 새로 똑제 때문에 선데 요명 단시 잡체도 잡아 들은 나가다가 차양 거 지가르지 이시지가리 얘네 요배 예시서 탐체 10배 시시사 사지섬 집에 빠져면 토만이 요리서 망발아 요리 다다 요리 선데 람종이시지 람종님을 수정 주마바에 들은 드마체 봐서 주제에는 맞다버서 드마체 봐에 들이 코메야요 말이지
So the supreme knowing, supreme knowing is to see yourself, to see your own mind. And ignorance means unawareness, not seeing your true nature. And not seeing your true nature, you perceive a duality. And so actually, as you mentioned, the Vipassana is actually the supreme seeing, the supreme knowing of your own nature. And that is what we call the self-knowing primordial wisdom. And that is the supreme awareness. And that awareness is the mind of the Buddha, the wisdom of the Buddha. And so when you know yourself, when awareness knows itself, then that is called primordial wisdom. When awareness does not know itself, then it is called the rational consciousness. And that consciousness projects outward, and it discerns and it knows, it perceives all the various objects, self and others, and so on. But when you look inward, when it projects inward and you look at itself, then it becomes free of all designations. Then you cannot describe it in terms of being existing or non-existing and so on. It becomes just like space. And that is the primordial wisdom. Primordial because it has always been there since beginningless time. And wisdom because it is an all-knowing quality, an all-knowing capacity. So it has been there always in the past, eternally. And in the future, it will never cease to be, will always be there. And also now it is just as it always was. And so that is called the self-existing, naturally existing primordial wisdom. And that is your own mind. And it is self-existing because it is not composed of different parts. So therefore it is uncomposed. If it is a composed, a compound, it is uncompounded. And so if it is compounded of different parts, then it follows whatever is compounded is impermanent. So its nature is uncompounded.
생근내로 문에대 랑그 딱지당 곰 상송도와 통값을 오 세를 다지 니 독삼박감이 진짜 따라된 납시 들이 문에 랑그 오 생근에 코랑 다지 니 마독 족니는 마도 생니 마독 사는 뜻이 하고 요래.
So when you meditate and you meditate the resting in vipassana with special insight, and you really look at the actual nature of your mind, then what you recognize here is just that. You recognize that actually the mind that perceives a duality of self and others, that is this rational consciousness, this intellect. But really, if you really look at the mind, there really is no such a distinction between self and others. There is only a distinction in different forms, but not within the mind. And actually, when you see that, you see primordial wisdom. Is it okay to visualize not just the image of the Buddha, but a vision of the Buddha in a state of samadhi? Tini sangye gomgores songda sangye gikoti gomgores tini sangye gikoti magomba jera ati magomna tini tat pen ta tinge tsi ngangne sangye kinangwa dawashisharna jigeres
말이더니 깨름 속으로라 깨름은 다 생보한테 답지 디디는 디니 닭부지를 쪽으로 다 깨름 속고요 납도 마마데 답지 납도 돈이 쪽으로 다고 납도 동반이는 또 깨름은 또 깨름들이 동반이 저는 동반이 동걸 갈래 식고요래 깨름 거기 주는 납도 직접 마찰을 직접 먹고요 말이 납도 샤르로 뛰고 납도 이보를 사이 깨름도 없나 들지 사이상랑 대라 되는 셋대 듣고요래 들이 선장과 차도 사이께는 손나 코는 손들이 선도 쪽과 차도 그래 별로 쳐지라 장만이 밤에 참아가 통구요래 산쪽나는 밥숨을 쳐대 썩은 통로만 빼대로 축축발에 대답을 예른 나는 손을 샘지 다 놓고요. 다 대잡아나기 파다 듣고요. 바쁜 줄이지.
And so the reason why we mentioned that today is because today this visualizing the Buddha form is because today we are talking about the generation stage in the beginning. And so the reason why we mention it in this way is that now in that context there still is a grasping to the reality, the true substantial existence of these outer appearing objects. And so this ordinary perception must become purified. And in order to purify it, we train in the generation stage. So in the generation stage, we must first purify our thoughts within the mind. So we must empty our thoughts through the generation stage and then also through the completion stage. Slowly, we diminish our grasping at various thoughts. But if, for example, to begin with, if there is no thought in your mind, if there is no grasping at all, and then of course you don't have to visualize in this specific way, you don't have to meditate on a deity. The generation stage, the visualization is an antidote to the ordinary thinking. Because if the mind visualizes, thinks of this pure vision of the deity, then the mind can remain there still. It can stay there without wandering. And then the mind becomes purified. If you begin to think about our worldly concerns, again, the mind becomes undefiled. So it is just like purifying water. When water is very pure, it is useful. Everybody drinks it. But when you flush it down the toilet, nobody would drink it. So it's still the same water. So the mind must be purified, just like washing it with a soap. And so that soap that we wash the mind with is the visualization of the generation stage, the visualization of the pure illusory body.
제는 양당에도 고문의 속을 속되다 리드 매가 쳐와요고요. 리드 파지로요. 되게 루고 박차 다세. 지 루고 박차 doctor들이 서로 속을 봐야 되냐도 다 안고요. 하자니 받치고요.
And so when we practice the generation stage again and again, we habituate it. Sometimes we will forget about our body. It almost seems there's no more feeling, no sensation of the body. The body seems to be gone. And at that time, we talk about purifying the habitual imprints of the body. And then again, when we begin to grasp and identify with the body and the form, this is what causes a lot of harm. If a person could practice perceiving the ultimate nature of mind directly in the presence of ordinary activity, what would be the benefit of practicing generation and completion stages of the deity? Tini ta chulam thamche kablam tini michiki tini ta kanlagri ta semdi tongbani nangla ne teni ta thöndang ki tempa khatuyena tinangla ne thopna ra chulam kapla ti kapla teni khongkirem dang zorem kom goya yorves teni kom kesi komna teni khom pendo yorves tinda bogimi tapwa thöndang ki ngobo nangla ne denghen ki michi chulam thamje kapla
대 탐지거리 이런 걸 사서 생부심 막지바 뒤뒤우나 이런 걸 사서 생송고요래 사상상도 인증미지 요거래 봐서 그러니까 이제 직들 사서 나 사서 진 아무리 이게 홍들이 진주스 요거래
이내가 디바데 미직라 라라케라 미직이 샘기 모보나 던담기 땜바 던담기 땜바 따빠 내되나
던담고 대봐
따빠 내되나 내되나 따빠 디나라 되기여나 라 던담기 땜바 테네 딘다 보기 메르와 쿠출람 탐제 갑라 짐바요 마라 콘 던담 ngobo 되기로와 코 따빠 던담 따 참마 돈반이 단 통거로 가뜨이나 줄랑갑라 된다고 김미 되니 코랑 기렘 단 조렘 검고게 두에스
대야들이 진심에 받네 턱하고요. 쪼랑 그감이 이제 라디 지나 라다 라마라서 버티는 야고 이거래. 진심에 받네 턱 하정 하고요. 섬싸고는 거를.
So first Rinpoche said, it is always still good to have a Yidam deity, have one Yidam deity, only one that always remains in your mind, and always remains in your mind, so you never forget about the Yidam. So that is actually important, and or if you cannot always think of the Yidam, you can also think of the seed syllable like Hong, for example, but there should be something in there in the mind, in your activities. So then I clarified now regarding the person who already always abides in the ultimate nature in all activities. And so Rinpoche said that actually it is quite difficult to abide in this nature all the time in all your everyday activities. Since this is very unlikely, it is very good that it would be good if you still would consider a Yidam deity or think of your guru and so on, because it is very difficult to sustain this ongoing state of staying in this ultimate nature. It is difficult for the mind to be that clear all the time.
이 강연에다가 시업감이 바도 당본이 봐도 제발 침보요래. 바도 당본이더니 니 톡가 살수 이놈 니 톡가감이들이 센서고 차트봐. 대 차나더니 바도 당본을 좋다고요래. 대답이 따와오는들이 다 예담마고 뭐 좋고요래. 대 하장 가고 옆에 바도 당본이 같이 절 맞췄나? 대마사도 나또 토마 영 가는더니 예담고 사치 주의 주부지 요거래. 예담고 사치는 되게 롱거를 상제했고요래. 다 죽어를 상기나 rab리 제 마트로 같이 계려다 같이 예담지 인주고 오고서 대회 예담들 사지 계조로 바도 당문을 탈수로 예담하고는 좋고요. 바도 당문 같이 마찬가지로 바도인지 말을래요. 토지 예담을 사이는 족사고 그래. 대회는 되는데다 예담을 사지 조람 탐지관 같이 보래. 들이 칼라사 내용을 롱주고감이 라이선하다 말하나 사제 진인의 초콜릿 그 이차로 용수도 거 째른나기 요거 말에 사제 샘님 맞지바지 별로 마치고 버타베지 마치를 보고들 셈이 제야 매바 고상한 가르쳐한테 예담라 제야 매바 차지나 진짜게 오래.
So the reason for that is so when we die, there is different ways of being liberated in the first or second bardo and so on. And so in the ideal case, we are liberated in the first bardo. And so that is accomplished when when you're alive, you fall asleep, and you never actually fall unconscious, but you recognize the luminosity of the deep sleep state. So, which means during the deep sleep state, the mind remains with complete clarity all the time. And so if you can accomplish that, then you will become liberated in the first bardo after death. But that is actually very difficult to accomplish. It's very difficult to sustain this clarity throughout a deep sleep state while you're actually sleeping. And so, therefore, if you do not become liberated in the first bardo, and that is extremely difficult, if you do not become liberated in the first bardo, then after death, then next you come to the second bardo, and again the mind, the concepts arise, and at that time you must be able to remember the Yidam deity. Because if you are able to remember the Yidam, then you can attain enlightenment as a Sambhogakaya. So ideally, of course, you attain enlightenment in the Dharmakaya right away in the first bardo, but that is very difficult. So therefore, now just in case we cannot accomplish that, it is good to have something else also prepared, and that is the practice of the Yidam deity. So of course, if you actually are able to recognize the first bardo, you don't even need a Yidam deity, it is true. But then just in case you do not recognize it, then it would be good to have the Yidam deity to remember when you come to the second bardo. And in order to do that, it is important to practice now in all your day-to-day activities, to always remember the Yidam deity in whatever you do. For example, when you're eating food or you're enjoying any of the other 5 sense pleasures, whatever you do, always think of the deity. And so when thinking of the deity here means just to have an awareness of the deity. You do not have to visualize all the implements and the ornaments and the color and so on as it is described in the visualization. So you don't have to visualize it all the time like that, but you should always have the deity in mind so you never forget about the deity. For example, like a mother would never forget about her only child. So if you only have this awareness, it is sufficient. You talked about the mirror-like wisdom in relation to ultimate primordial wisdom. Could you say a few words about the other of the 5 wisdoms and or suggest a text that might be available in English? Thank you, Rinpoche. Rinpoche kazen di melong dawa yeshe soyinba, melong dawa yeshe. Dini melong dawa yeshe di tartuk yeshe nan dawa yore, tartuk senging obon dawa yore soyinba. Dini yeshe nga yore songi yorwa, dini Rinpoche melong yeshe chikpo dawa teshtis nang yorwa, dini yeshe shen shiten zan this station nang nangs yangna di kola tep yorwes inchi thola.
Tep yore di she pa tamche nang yore di sem chik yung di di zungji tamche chayawa me long dawe di sem yang to ono sem sharowa di la zangi kido me wa na to tamche nziba me wa di nyamba ni ji shi di nani di jumje chayi chawa di shawa di la gim이 또 토tam지 양제로 가가 하고 좀 차였다 돈이 좀 돼서다는데 대화도 소설도 없이 뒤에 tam지 기와를 사족선을 타고 싶은 라지가 적용요래 나디는 마다번 도와줘 라지가 적용돼 대상이 라지가 잡아면 수주 조용 말이 사와트 베이시 sem적 용tin래.
So there are many various books that you can read about that. So you have to see what there is available in your language. But then, regarding those 5 wisdoms are qualities that are inherent within one mind. So there are 5 qualities of one single mind. So the mirror-like wisdom is like a mirror because anything can be reflected in the mirror, and anything that appears without any bias can be reflected in the mirror. So therefore it's a mirror-like wisdom. And then whatever is reflected in that mirror, good or bad and so on, the mind does not has no bias. It doesn't become involved in those appearances. So that mind does not grasp at whatever good or bad thoughts arise. They're all the same. So that perceiving it all as the same, that is the wisdom of equanimity. And then, although all is the same, also, however, there's a very clear knowledge of the subtle workings of karma. So although all is the same by nature, this mind also knows that virtue and non-virtue leads to different results. So that actually is the karma is the the emptiness is the natural radiance of karma, cause and effect. So they are actually a union. And so that clear knowledge of that is called the individually discriminating wisdom. And then this wisdom knows, the mind then also knows that naturally, when there is bodhicitta, bodhicitta naturally creates the Pure Lands and self-grasping, and the afflictions naturally create the 6 realms of samsara. So naturally, which means no one actually makes it. It's just the nature of it. It naturally is created. And so this natural creation, this natural creation of certain results from certain causes, that is called the all-accomplishing wisdom. So these are 5 qualities of one mind. Why do we visualize some deities in self-generation and other deities in front of us? And so the lakashing and so dakie gomgyorva soso gomgyorva tini lakashi dun la gomgyorva tik kareina tik cheva kareyore
당분 내기 공고에 다시 이든 내기 사나카라 건 지마된 내기 나카라 건데 사들한 그 셈을 샷디로 하고는 들 살을 지름이 되더니 내도 이나 예죠 규제 예죠 담보사 옷이 봐도 조보차 들이 선발 빈자나지 차 좋다지 사단 있으면 봐 차거도 매일 매일이 미고 그러지.
So first, in the beginning, we should practice the front visualization, a deity in front. For example, in the sky, in the space before us. And then, as you gradually keep practicing, you begin to realize that what appears to you in front actually still is your own mind. It still is the perception, the appearance within your own mind. So gradually you understand actually it's myself. And so then you come to the self-visualization. So we practice in stages, for example, following the 4 branches of approach, close approach, accomplishment, great accomplishment, or the 4 classes of Tantra. So in brief, those 4 steps are: first, we recognize the deity. We get acquainted to the deity. Secondly, we become friends with the deity. Third, it is like we become family with the deity. And then fourth, we become non-dual. We become the deity. So this is how we gradually ripen. Yeah.
Mane be me hong, 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 mane be me hong.
Good afternoon, brother and sister. I'm looking for the car, who's the driver of the car of the, I think the Honda SUV, the Virginia license tag XJ8920, basically blocking the driveway for those people parking there behind. So if you can move your car, this is the gray Honda SUV, Virginia license tag, XJ8920, could you please remove? Okay, you move it. And also, this afternoon, His Holiness, I'm glad to give you the information on His Holiness flight number. His flight number, arriving in Dallas Airport, he's flying with U.S. Airways. The flight number is 4947, 4947. Arriving at Dallas Airport 5:16 p.m., 5:16 p.m. from Charlotte, North Carolina. He's flying from San Diego, but they stopped in Charlotte, and he switched the flight 4947 to Dallas Airport. Landed to be landed at 5:16 p.m. U.S. Airways. So thank you very much. Once again, we have lunch downstairs. Please come around in the basement, okay, and have that.
Just quickly before. The flight number is 4947. U.S. Airways. I have a quick request here. Our staff here, volunteers, are still looking for help. So if you, any brother and sister, if you feel like helping out, please let us know. And Catherine, Sister Catherine over there, she'll let you know all the details of what the tasks that we would need to get done. Thank you so much. Yeah, and we'll be resuming here at 2:30. Oh, I'm sorry. It's going to be 2 o'clock today. We're going to be resuming the teaching.
Let me see. Hold on. Okay. It may be, maybe that one better. Yeah. And we should move.